Well, shalom and welcome to the year 2024. Yeah, we made it. I was kind of wondering there for a little while. For those of you that sent text or email or a couple of folks that called just asking how Kathy and I are doing, it's a wild week there, the last week of 2023. About Friday prior to, Kathy started feeling a little rough. By Sunday night, I got it. And we pretty much just kind of went from couch to recliner to bed to couch to recliner to bed for a week. And to say that I'm firing on all cylinders, no, not yet. This has been, I cannot remember when I was this sick. And it was just really pretty rough. I talked with a friend of mine this morning in Israel, and they said, well, what do you have? Do you get tested for COVID? I said, no. Was it the flu? I don't know. I kind of figured that, the last time years ago that I got sick, I had a choice of going to the doctor and to the hospital and to the ER or whatever, and, probably catching more germs, and they give me some medicine, and about a week later, I'd be feeling better. Or I could just, stay at home, take some medicine, and about a week or so later, I'd be feeling better, and I did. But, we used to just get the crud. And, Kathy and I got a case of it here. So appreciate your prayers as we enter into this Gregorian year. Wow, what's this one going to bring? I don't think that it's going to bring normal. So for those that were praying back in 2020 for normal, and then 21 and 22 and 23, how'd those prayers go? Probably not real well. So let's just quit trying to find normal, because there hasn't been normal on this planet since the fall for 6,000 years. And the only time that we're going to have normal again is when his kingdom is restored. So I'm just kind of going for that one, all right? In the process, we need to learn how to embrace the days that we're in. I've had, I don't do systematic things. I got a friend of mine that's an engineer, and so he's going through the chronological Bible or something. I start those on like January 1st, and I usually am tripped up by January 2nd. So I don't do that anymore. Not that I don't believe people should, that's fine. But if you can do that, that's fine. It just doesn't fit with me. So I kind of randomly pray and ask the Father to lead me. And so since October 7th, I've read Jeremiah. Wow, that was an experience. I've read through Revelation, another experience. I decided to go, or I decided, I hopefully was led to go to Matthew, which means that January 1st, I sat down and I read the book of Matthew 24, the chapter of Matthew 24. Yeah, I don't know how it's going to work out any more than anybody else does. All I know is that we have been chosen to live at this time in history, and we need to embrace that. We need to embrace what we can. And speaking of embracing a birth, a calling, how's that for a bad segue, I guess? We turn the page here in this Shabbat to the words of Exodus or Shemot, translated the names. It's actually very interesting in Hebrew. It's Shemot is Shem with a Vav and a Tav on it. So it would literally be kind of, I guess we could look at it this way, that these are the names of the people of the covenant. Okay, remember this book that we have it's a historical book, yes, but it really is not written about history as much as it is written about covenant. And so we should be desiring for our names to be a part of this book. When you look at the words of Malachi, there were those that spoke of him often, and there was a book of remembrance written about them. The book that we see, the book of life, and all these books that are in Scripture. How many of them can we challenge ourselves in life to get our names written in those. I mean, because the end, the only ones that really make a difference in history are those that find themselves in the book. Now, it's kind of moving on from there, and I will give a disclaimer this week. I'm here, kind of right on the verge of coughing. Hopefully that's not going to happen too much, but still a little on the fuzzy side regarding my thought processes. So please bear with me. Now I'll go all the way down to chapter 1, verse 8, and I said something to Ryan Cribbs. I actually was able to record with them last week. It says that now there arose a king over Egypt, and he knew nothing about Joseph, but said to his people, and it goes on from there, that it appears that he was saying that he didn't know history at all. He didn't know what had happened, a couple of 100 years prior to. Well, pharaohs in my study were just not like that. They knew everything that had happened up till that point. They, from what I have been able to surmise, that the pharaohs of the day, they knew history, the same as we see politicians today. One of the best things you can have as a politician is a very good handle on history. In fact, if you don't, you're probably going to get tripped up along the way, as we see some doing right now. But the word is not that he did not know that Joseph had existed, but he did not acknowledge the accomplishments. He did not acknowledge the achievements. Though he knew about them, it was like, well, that's just old history, and that's somebody that was there, but for now, I've got to deal with today, and that guy from 200 years ago is pretty irrelevant in my book. And so, with that, it says that in verse 10, "Come, let us use wisdom in dealing with these people, otherwise they'll continue to multiply, and in the event of war, they might ally themselves with our enemies, fight against us, and leave the land altogether." Now, I know that specifically the Jewish people, we don't have much of a history at this point, but if you just consider how many times have you seen in history a war started by Jewish people? Okay, that didn't happen on October 7th. Did not happen in 1948, did not happen in 1967, did not happen in 1973, did not happen with the Oslo Wars. The thinking here is something that is tragically wrong from back in the time of Pharaoh and continues today. Because the Pharaoh looked at these people, the Hebrews, and he says, if they keep multiplying, then they're probably going to rise up against us. Which is pretty much to say, I have no idea what this term covenant is all about. And what do we see happening today? Okay, let me kind of surmise it like this. Covenant, here's what the Pharaoh is saying. Covenant cannot possibly be the solution to our problems upon this world. It must be the problem. It could not be possible that we could somehow submit ourselves to the plans and purposes of God and therefore find a better way of living life, one in which is more beneficial to all. No, that's the problem. That's the problem. When we submit ourselves to God, our Creator, when we submit ourselves to His covenant, then that's going to bring us to a point of disaster. Instead, we're going to walk it out like we do, which brings what? Well, it brings forth wars and rumors of wars, famines, and all kinds of other things. I was thinking about this as I was watching the news the other day, of how many countries right now are in war. I have said this for about a year. Had someone disagree, but that's fine. One of us is wrong. I've been saying for about a year that we're probably already in World War III. Had a very interesting statement that I heard. Someone said, well, we can't be in World War III yet because we haven't seen the mushroom clouds. Well, mushroom clouds normally signify the end of a war, not the beginning of war. The war is what we have to go through to get to the mushroom cloud at the end. And we've been going through a lot of that. And if you look at how many countries today are at war with each other, it is phenomenal. It is a worldwide thing. We've got Japan is upping the ante regarding their military. It's happening all over. And just kind of in my random thoughts, what if, like China today, China has come out with this statement that they're going to soon reoccupy Taiwan. Well, what if China decided, we don't need to reoccupy. Why don't we treat them as a sovereign nation and try to figure out how to work together? And what if Russia decided to treat Ukraine as a sovereign nation and how to work together to be a blessing to one another? And what if the Arabs in Gaza had, on October 6th, decided, we don't need to slaughter people. Why don't we just accept the boundaries that the Creator has given, and let's see how we can work with the state of Israel to be a blessing to one another. I mean, is that so far-fetched? Yeah, it is, because no, that would be the problem. Walking out God's ways of servanthood, of humility, of walking as considering your brother better than yourself, esteeming others better than yourself. No, that's the problem. That could never possibly be the solution. And that's why I don't look for a political solution to a spiritual problem. Ladies and gentlemen, you know already that in the United States, we're in the election cycle. We're talking about in Israel of new, of the overthrow or, the new elections regarding Bibi Netanyahu. It's going to be the next 11 months in the United States is going to be ridiculous. Because it's already been ridiculous. And I don't care who gets in office. It doesn't matter to me. Because they're all going to end up being politicians. They may be a little bit better on your leaning, may bring forth, but in the end, there's only one answer to this thing. And it is Messiah. It is not a politician. So what does the Pharaoh decide in that day regarding the Hebrews? Well, it comes down to two things. Let's put them in slavery and murder their children. Wow. October 7th. What was that all about? Well, let's just kidnap them, put them in slavery, and murder them. History continues to just repeat itself over and over and over again. There is no difference. Except for in the days of in the book of Exodus in Egypt, we see that the Father has a plan, which should tell us something. That if he had a plan in Shemot chapter 1 and chapter 2, then maybe he still has a plan in 2024. And it's possible to look at it and consider that as we go into chapter 2, that by the time we catch up with what the plan's all about and what the needs are, he's already been working behind the scenes for many years. I think we're probably going to figure that one out one more time. So there is in the process of the decree for the Hebrews to be put into harder slavery, for them to be murdered, the babies to be murdered, the Father has a purpose. He has a plan. And his plan is carried out through a family of the tribe of Levi, a man who took a wife, also from the descendants of Levi, and she conceived a son. And the scripture says that the son, it says, when she conceived and had a son, upon seeing what a fine child he was, she had him for 3 months. She hid him for 3 months. Kind of a funny way of looking at things. I mean, you know, it's very seldom that you have a child and you look at the child and you say, that's ugly. Most parents see beauty in their child. I mean, you know, I have had situations that, you know, you're like, not the cutest child out there, but we'll see how they grow up, you know. Maybe they'll kind of grow into themselves. But for Moses' mom and dad, it says that she saw that the child was a fine child, or as King Jimmy translates it, a beautiful child, I think is the way that he says. But the word here in Hebrew is that when she saw that he was tov, that he was good. But the word tov is not just, you know, you and I use the word tov for, you know, how was the ice cream? It was good. How was your day? It was good. You know, how was your doctor's appointment? Well, it was good. Good is kind of a word that we use and throw around for all kinds of things. But instead, the word tov it is complete for the purpose, for the proposed task. It is as if, and you ladies will understand this, you guys, you'll be like, I don't know what he's talking about. But ladies, you have an insight into things that most men don't. And that's a blanket statement, I know. I have met women that, you know, they don't have any clue any more than anybody else does, okay? But ladies, it is within your DNA, your spiritual DNA, to look into a situation and see that situation for more than it is in the natural. And I think this is what is happening in the life of Moshe, is that when his mother looked at him, she was given a supernatural insight into the person that he was, and that he was complete and perfect for the task that the Father had already called him to from before he was conceived in the womb. Now, we see that Moses, of course, I mean, anybody that's been to Vacation Bible study knows the story. That Moshe's father put him in, you know, they hid him for 3 months. A task of itself. He's getting older. His cries are a little louder. So let's put him in a boat. Let's put him in the Nile River, and let's subject him to the crocodiles. Think about the act of faith that this is. Okay, now, I mean, true, Moses is, if he is kept in Goshen, he's going to be found out, and the Egyptians are going to put him to death. Okay? So let's put it outside of our control. Let's put him into a little ark of bulrushes, coat it, make it waterproof, and throw him out there in a river that's known for crocodiles. And let's see how how he goes about. Well, I know Rico Cortez has done a lot of teaching regarding this, that for the Egyptian culture, it was about he was thrown into the water, and the water deemed him as innocent. Okay, I got that. But when Moses' mom and dad threw him into that river, they didn't, I mean, it was a total act of trust. Are we willing to, in life, let go of our own everything? Let go of our own life? I mean, consider that, that Moshe is, if he dies, this is their lineage. This is their very lineage. They're doing the same thing that Abram did in being willing to sacrifice their future. And in doing so, look what they were given. They were given a place in history, in Scripture, in the covenant, because of what they were willing to give up. I mean, I guess like an easy softball question is, what are we not willing to give up? What are we not willing to throw out there to the gators, to the crocodiles? What are we wanting to hold on to, instead of giving it unto the Father and saying, maybe in my giving it away, there's a greater purpose for it all? Those are questions we just need to ask ourselves. And now we know, of course, that Miriam goes along beside, and the Pharaoh's daughter finds him, and the word Moshe is actually drawn out, and he is now given to the deliverer is now raised by a virgin daughter of the Pharaoh. Okay, prophetic significance there, but would be given for a time unto Moshe's mom and dad, and the Pharaoh's actually paying them to raise their child now. Interesting turn of events here. But here's Moshe, who is in exile in Goshen, but is now in exile in the Pharaoh's palace. Do you remember the story of Joseph that we've been going through for the last few weeks? This is almost like, for the Hebrews, it's like, okay, you didn't, it's like, okay, I'm going to set this thing up again. Now, the Pharaoh is not going to acknowledge, is not going to give credence to the person of Joseph and what he has done for Egypt. But are the Hebrews also going to forget? Or are they also going to forget what Joseph did? Well, the answer is kind of yes. Because when Joseph, goes to his siblings and says, I got a dream, what did they do? Tried to kill him, tried to sell him, he ended up going into prison, all of those things. And so when Moshe comes to the age, is out wandering around in Egypt and sees the Egyptians fighting, and I mean, this one has always intrigued me. How did he figure that out? How long was he raised in the house of his mom and dad? When did he figure out he was actually a Hebrew? How did this all come about? We're told in extra biblical writings some things, but the Scripture has us on a need to know basis, and right here, it's the Almighty is kind of like, you don't need to know, okay? What you need to know is there came a time in which Moshe had to make a stand of who he was. Wow, there's another softball. There comes a time in which you have to make a stand of who you're going to be in this world. Now, when he comes to the Egyptian who is beating the Hebrew. It says that he looked this way and that and saw no one. Well, the wording, my understanding of the wording is more like this. He looked around and figured out nobody's doing anything about this. They've just submitted themselves to slavery. Nobody's doing anything. It's like I remember back to the beginning of October, after October 7, and there was a question asked, or something brought out, and it's been kind of working through the centuries or through the last decades of the concept going back to Oskar Schindler and Wallenberg and the Ten Boom family and various ones of how the Jews were hidden in Nazi Germany and saved. Many were saved and brought out, and it was because of the righteous Gentiles that did this. And someone kind of floated the idea online that who are we going to be? Are we going to be the people that hide the Jews again? And I remember, I don't know who it was, but the Jewish response to this person says, "I'm tired of hiding." Kind of a loosely translated on this scenario, but it was basically this: we're not hiding again. It's not time to hide. This is a time to fight. And what we've seen since October 7th, for the most part, is the IDF, the people of Israel, who have said, we've had enough. And it does not matter which one of our politicians, whether it's Blinken or Scott or whoever all these idiots are, some of them, I'm not going to go there right now. But the Biden administration tried to say, let's just take a pause. I personally believe that given the ability to, Netanyahu would probably take a pause right now. But it's not the political strength that's driving this war. It is, in my understanding, it is not so much the higher echelon of the military. It's the people. It's the people. The atrocities, the things that have been done to these people, the stories that continue to come out about the horrendous acts against men, women, children that were brutally molested and killed on those first days and continue to be through the situation with the hostages. It has been and continues to be the strength of the people. I don't believe the spirit of the Jewish people today is one of, let's just go try to find a hiding place again. We see reports, even in the United States, of rabbis that are leading or bringing people in to lead firearms courses. We're seeing in Israel how, for the first time in that I know of, that the government is actually changing some of the laws regarding firearms. Anybody that's never seen, I haven't mentioned this for a long time, but there's a video online. I do not suggest, this is not a family watch movie, okay? This is a documentary. It's on YouTube, a little grainy, been around for a while. It was done by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms, and it's called Innocence Betrayed. If you've never seen that, I urge you to. It is not easy to watch. It is very, very violent. It is very graphic. Parents, please watch before you allow your children to. But I see a different spirit coming forth in Judaism today. Have we, in this Messianic Hebrew roots movement, community, whatever you want to call it, have we entered into that level of spiritual militancy? Or are we the ones? I say we as a overall group of people, not directing it to anybody in particular, because I know that most of you who are watching are not the silent majority. You're the ones that are vocal. You're the ones that are continuing to give. You're the ones that are making a difference. You're the ones that are praying. You're the ones that are doing something. But let's face it, as Judaism has found their backbone, their purpose in many ways, and may that purpose drive them to a greater revelation of the Torah, of the scriptures, the prophets, the writings, and a greater relationship with the Almighty Himself. As that is happening, what's the other side? Moving on. Now it says that as Moshe came out the next day, he saw two Hebrews fighting together and tried to separate it. And one of them looks and says, "Who has made you? Who has appointed you as ruler and judge over us?" Now, guys, this one statement here is so prophetic to each of us. We just got through December, right? We made it. I was blessed, I guess, in the last week. I couldn't go to the store, so I kind of gotten most of that stuff out of my head. But we had to watch. We got the all the stuff on Facebook from friends and family, and it's like, just get me through it. And if you happen to mention something, unfortunately, the response many times you get is, "Who appointed you a judge? Who appointed you as a ruler?" So you come to them with the clear-cut truth of the Torah, of how we should live our lives, of what should be a part of our lives and what should not be a part of our lives. And it's clear-cut, yes. The tragedy is that I see Messianic congregations, Messianic people that have say that they're following the Torah, but yet I guess they're not thinking that anybody's going to see when they post their kind of 1 foot in one camp and 1 foot in the other camp lifestyle. I urge you going into this year of 2024. I know it's Gregorian, okay, but I mean, you write a check. Remember the old days? You write a check, you can put a Hebrew date on there all day long. Nobody's going to cash it, okay? They're going to send it back. You put a Hebrew date on your house payment, they're going to repossess your house. We have to deal with this stuff. So I urge you, go back to Revelation, first few chapters of Revelation. Read the congregation. Read the words to the congregation at Laodicea. I wish you were hot or cold, but because you're lukewarm, I'm going to vomit you out of my mouth. Ladies and gentlemen, the more serious times are getting, and they are, and they're going to get more and more serious, we need to take a stand. Because the end result is if you don't take a stand, you're not going to smell too good. Read the words and then figure out what I just said. Okay? I'm going to vomit you out of my mouth. And nobody likes that smell. Is that maybe why people don't make as much of an impact as they should, is because in the end their life smells bad. Just things to think about, okay? Now, who appointed you as our judge and our ruler? This brings forth a revelation. Because Moshe, and I'm kind of speculating here, Moshe has been like, okay, who am I? Who am I? Am I hot or cold? Who am I? Am I a mixture? Am I like an American Jew? Am I like an American Messianic? Am I an American Hebrew? What am I? Until we can answer the question of who we are, we have no idea where we're going. And we have no idea how to get there. So, in this, it says that the matter, the matter he became aware of. The matter has become known. What is that matter? That Moshe made a decision. The matter is seen. It is Devar Yada, the word, the establishment of the word that Moshe has now accepted into his life has now become apparent. See, this word Yada is the same word that was used at the beginning when it says that the Pharaoh did not acknowledge who the Hebrews were. Yada. Same word here. It is that Moshe was acknowledging where he came from. It was being established in his life. But that would that would end up being kind of driving him out in the wilderness to the backside of the desert. And here the saga of the making of a man begins. I've taught on this extensively in the past. I'm not going to go totally into it today. But 40 years in Egypt will now be 40 years on the backside of the desert. Because there comes a time in which the man has to be made. And that wasn't going to happen in Egypt. But see, when Moshe goes out into the wilderness, Moshe does not understand that he's going there for a purpose, and that is to find his calling and to figure out who he is and to accept the reasons for his birth and all of those. He doesn't understand all that. The only thing that Moshe goes out in the wilderness with is this one thought: I'm a failure. I failed. I got things out of hand. I can't go back. And he spends 40 years in the wilderness thinking about one thing. As he's looking at sheep, he's thinking about sheep. I wonder how many of those sheep that he's looking at for 40 years in the wilderness, and he named them. He began to name them after those people that he had known in Egypt. Oh, there's little Yosef over there again. And there's little Reuben over there trying to get out. And there's little Simeon trying to bully everybody. How many of those sheep did he name? And over and over and over again for 40 years, he thought he was a failure. When instead, it was just the Father putting him in a place for a day. We all fail, ladies and gentlemen. We all have our issues in life. We all do things that it's like, why did I do that? That was stupid. How did I get involved in that again? God could never work through me. I'm a failure. But see, it goes back to the difference between the righteous and the unrighteous man. What does it say that the righteous man falls 7 times? What made him righteous? He kept getting up. He kept getting up and giving it another shot. And Moshe, though it was in the back of his mind of being a failure for all those years, he kept getting up every morning. And there would be a morning in which things would change for him. Now, as Moshe's out here in the wilderness, we see in Exodus chapter 2 that in verse 23, sometime during these many years, the king of Egypt died, but the people of Israel still groaned under the yoke of slavery, and they cried out. And their cry came for rescue from slavery, came up to God. Now, I've, again, told them this many times. It doesn't say they cried out to God. It doesn't say that they were crying out to the one that could deliver. No, it just said they were crying. Folks, learning who to cry to is one of the most important things in life. You know, complaining is basically crying out to nobody. It's worthless. We all go through trials. We all go through tribulations. None of our lives are perfect. But learning who to cry to, crying out to the one who can deliver us. Now, it doesn't say that they were crying out to him, but they were just crying. But because he's faithful to the covenant, he heard the cries. And because of that, he's got a guy out on the backside of the desert that is already being prepared for the cries to be heard. So, this is so fascinating to me that by the time we figure out how to cry and who to cry to, he's already been at work to answer our cries. And for them, it was a guy who's walking around out in the wilderness, doing his own thing, shepherding sheep. He sees a bush that's burning and doesn't go out. It's not unusual to see a bush burning in the desert. Yeah. But after about 3 or 4 days, it's like, what in the world's that going on over there? It's supposed to have already gone out by now, but it's still burning. But Moshe had to do something. He had to depart from his life. He had to depart from, and this is actually related to the words of feet and in his lifestyle and habits that he was going through. This is actually in the Hebrew wording here, is that he had to depart from his typical routine, departing from the routine of his own life in order to find his life. Now, when I say to find his life, does the word his there have a capital letter or a lowercase? The answer is yes. Because in order to find our own life, we find our life hidden in his life. Because we are a dream within his dream and a plan within his plan. But we at some point have to depart from our typical life of day by day, looking over how many times have I gone past a burning bush in my life? Still burning. Wonder why. But I got a plan. I got a direction I got to go. I got sheep to tend to. We need to be conscious, especially in the days that we have today. We need to be conscious of the burning bushes. They're not going to have a sign on them, folks. It's normally not, look, I'm here. It's not the billboard. It's just a burning bush. And it's way too easy in life to walk by one. Now, when he does get there, he hears these words, Moshe, Moshe, and he says, here I am. It's the word hineni. It's the word that, excuse me, the word passed down through generations, hineni. I won't go into that again. It basically is, here I am. Whatever it is, I'm already here. Well, he said it. Later on, we're going to find out he has a little bit in reserve here. He's holding back. But the word says that he was told, take off your sandals, because the place that you're standing is holy ground. Take off your sandals. What could we see out of that? I know that there's level after level here. But our shoes, our sandals, this is a man's work. It's something that in that day, leather. Okay, they didn't have our typical, synthetic things today. A piece of leather. It was an animal that had to be killed. It was death. Take that which comes from death in your life and set it aside. All kinds of things I can go to here. But Moshe here, this is my main thought. Now, as you can probably see that my mind's going in a lot of different directions on this one. But here's my main thought. Moshe, as you're standing here before me, don't let anything stand between us. Make sure there's nothing man-made between me and you. Now, in our own society, we could see that, shoes are, and I just going back to some teaching on grounding. If you've never gone the concept of our physical being in contact with the earth. Okay, it's fascinating, and I think it's great to look into these days. But with that, it's like in our day, in that day you had leather, which leather did not interfere with the grounding effects of the earth. But today, our shoes, our synthetic shoes that we use, they interfere with our contact. Kind of the same as doctrines, denominations, and traditions. What is it that's between us and him? As he was there in that burning bush, the very essence of him was coming through the ground and into Moshe. The spiritual, I don't want to use the word vibrations, okay? The spiritual essence of the bush was coming into the person of Moshe. He needed his shoes taken off. What do we need to take off to get that connection between us and him? And then he says something here, and I've got to finish up. He says to Moshe, your sign that I have sent you will be that when you have led this people out of Egypt, you will worship Elohim on this mountain. Moshe, I'm going to give you, before we even start the journey, I'm going to give you a destination. And then as I'm going to bring you back here. There's times in life that the only thing that there is to hold on to is the promise of our destination. I mean, look around us. The only thing at times that I hold on to right now is the promise of my destination. And that promise allows me to put one step, guides me, makes me put one more step in front of another. You know the story. The rod and all of those things. Moshe goes into Egypt, and Pharaoh says, wow, I've been waiting for you to come, and yeah, hey, I just had a dream last night, and the people are, take him, Moshe. No, that's not the way it works. Before deliverance comes, hardship is increased. Look back at 2020. 21, 22, 23. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not looking for things to get better. Not the big prophet of doom here, okay? But I can read the scripture. I'm not looking for things to get better before it probably gets worse. But in the end, you and I have a promise. We may be in Egypt today, but Canaan is our destination. We may be in this world today, but the kingdom is our destination. We need to hold strong with that. Shabbat Shalom. Shavua Tov. Have a blessed, prosperous week. Bezrat Hashem. God willing. See you again next week. And until then, well, it was good for 2023, 22, 21. I don't know how I'm going to say this. I'm going to probably keep just saying it again. Be strong.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.